Jango and Boba, father and son, were the most effective marksmen of the galaxy, and everyone always has the debate of who's more cool, Jango Fett or Boba Fett, clean and controlled or rugged and adaptive. So if the two had to meet on Kamino again when both in their primes, who would end up with the dent in their helmet? Oh, and let's not forget that Jango would have his clones at his side, opposed to his son, who just so happens to be friends with a very certain Sith. Obi-Wan walks out of the room of Jango Fett, and his son Boba being escorted politely by Tan Wei, who waits at the door as the Jedi heads towards his Jedi starfighter to speak with the Jedi Council. Meanwhile, Boba looks up at his father, wondering what to do. "Pack your things, we're leaving." Then as Tan Wei comes back into the room, she words to Jango that should the Jedi try to arrest him on his way out, he is far too great of an asset to lose for the Kaminoans. So she shows Jango as Boba packs up in the closet a highly trained clone of him, which she will deploy with Boba on their mission to Geonosis. This clone gets in the Durasteel armor as Jango agrees, thinking in the best interest of his son having a dad. Then this clone of Jango would fight Obi-Wan before then going to Geonosis, where he is beheaded by Mace Windu. When the real Jango hears this news, he requests to see Boba immediately, but Boba has of course fled the planet and now chosen his own path. So disappointed, Jango is forced by the cloners to go into hiding in the laboratories of Kamino, where he is kept at the age of 44 from their high tech to keep him in prime condition. Because the Kaminoans also really don't want a 60-year-old Jango Fett as a reference for future clones, but 24 years later in 2 ABY, even though the clones have long been forgotten, bringing way to the new stormtroopers, behind the back of Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader has begun work on a secret clone legion that will serve under him in future searches for the unfound rebel base, which will later be discovered at Hoth, but they do not know this yet. Training these fine soldiers is Boba Fett, a bounty hunter that Vader is now familiar with, who is very much in his prime in only his mid-30s. So I couldn't really tell you the prime age for bounty hunting. I mean, maybe the 30s because you have more experience, but I don't really know. Boba is used for cloning reference and of course blaster training on a secret facility on Kamino located under the water. Then one day Boba is assigned to monitoring one of the lower levels of the base when he stops at a creaking sound up ahead. Moving with caution, the bounty hunter steps forward until he gets to a dark room with tall vats of Kaminoan bacteria surrounding him, giving the room a slight red tint. Then an undetected explosion goes off right next to Boba, which sends him flying back and into the vats, which he bounces off of. When Boba hits the ground, his head is rattling in his helmet as he feels the blood pump into his head again. Then, standing up, he's hit with a man wielding a jetpack who rams Boba into a nearby corner, which sends the two rolling onto the ground. And as the assassin walks up to Boba, he can't make him out as his eyes are still fuzzy, but his infrared visor shows him that it's a Mandalorian of some kind. Then, right as the man pulls out his blaster, Boba activates his jetpack on the floor, which makes him jolt forward, knocking the assassin over. Then, as the enemy flips over onto his back to get up again, Boba shoots his whipcord around him, which keeps him in place, but in response, the man breaks out with his vibroblades before they both point blasters at each other, causing a stalemate. As Boba's vision comes back, he can't believe to see Jango Fett back from the dead. "That's right, boy, I'm back, and now you're standing in my way." Jango throws a bounty puck onto the ground, which doesn't make Boba feel any less betrayed, even if he understands a little bit more now. "Dude, what Jedi sorcery is this? You died." "Not exactly. You see, Tan Wei had to cover me up with a clone that day on Geonosis for their, how should we put this, business. But if you remember anything of what I taught you, little Boba, the bounty always comes first. No attachments allowed." "Oh, believe me, I've memorized your word on hunting, and I must say that it was pretty good a long time ago. I guess we'll just have to see how fast I eliminate you, boy." With this, Jango draws his Westar 34 blaster with his right hand before grabbing it mid-air with his left, which is by his side, before pulling out the other pistol. He then jabs the two together into Boba's EE3 carbine while shooting, which destroys Boba's rifle. This means that Boba is now forced to fight without his iconic weapon against his father, making him rely on his other weapons and martial arts knowledge, as well as his creativity in battle to beat Jango. After this first first blow, however, the bounty hunters leap into battle, with Jango running up the wall with support from his jetpack as Boba uses a grappling hook to propel himself forward. Then they meet in the middle of the dimly lit Kaminoan hallway, with Jango shoving his wrist viro blade into Boba's neck while holding him against the wall, as Jango starts to slowly overpower the younger Fett with his will and strength until Boba headbutts his father and kicks him again across the floor for good measure. And in case you don't remember, the wrist viro blade is what Jango used to stop himself from falling into the water in Attack of the Clones. So he was basically just using that to try to just really kill him, because he's going at it at this point. I mean, bounty hunting is bounty hunting, so that's the way it is. Then Jango runs behind one of the damaged walls as Boba follows with his flamethrower, melting the wall where he thinks Jango is to ashes. Jango then leaps through the wall using his Mandalorian martial arts knowledge and grabs Boba's flamethrower, trying to shove it into his own face, which leads to Jango turning his own on and pulling both down so that he faces his son as they shoot fire on either side. But then Boba shoots up with his knee rocket dart launchers into the placard of Jango, who stops the flames and falls back towards the stairs leading to the next level before blocking a kick and flying up with his pack while shooting down at Boba. After landing on the next level, Boba follows and then bends over to shoot his missile in Jango's direction. Startled, Jango tries to dodge out of the way, but it's too late as the rocket-firing missile hits a spot on the wall in front of Jango, which lifts him off his feet and into the hallway behind him, where he lands on his back and his helmet then disconnects from the rest of the suit. Then Boba flies up to him and grabs Jango's own helmet to use as a weapon against him. So as his father stands up, Boba starts pummeling Jango in the face with this piece of equipment, which dazes him, and then Boba uses the folds of Jango's armor to throw him around the hallway. The blue bounty hunter, no, not me, although I must say Jango is a pretty cool guy, I would definitely recommend him for bounty hunting tips, but the older blue bounty hunter gets up and responds to Boba's attack by pulling out his dual blasters and firing them into Boba's green Beskar chestplate and helmet, which pushes Boba back. Then the two start flying around the outer hallway of the facility, which wraps around the whole base and is big enough for aerial combat, which is good as the two bounty hunters start flying around with their jetpacks, occasionally shooting at each other. Jango with his Westars and Boba with his wrist laser that is less effective than his EE3, but still good nonetheless. Then on one time when Boba flies past his father, flying right next to him, Jango grabs Boba's Wookiee braid mid-air and uses it to throw Boba into a wall, which he bounces off of onto the ground below, cracking the glass and breaking some of Boba's ribs, which leaves him weak on the floor, barely managing to crawl onto his side. Then Jango flies down a few meters ahead of Boba and starts to walk forward with his now damaged armor and his pistols pointing straight ahead. "Well, this is it. I just wish I had more time to train with you before it came to this. One thing's for sure, it's too late now."
How right you are.
Then the doors of level 1 burst open, revealing Darth Vader with a whole legion of specialized clone troopers trained under Boba in black and green armor with custom red eyes like Vader's own, standing behind him and that hold their guns at the ready. Boba then steps back as he is confident the army will soon take out their enemy.
Shoot them. Shoot them both.
Huh? Then all of the clones open fire on the two men as Boba takes the bulk of the hits with his Beskar armor, and Jango was hit a time or two in the side, but then an Old Republic gunship with blue and silver Jag eyes on it crashes straight through the roof in between the bounty hunters and Vader's forces, allowing them to take cover as bullets rain against the hull, but then also multiple legions of Phase 1 clone troopers charge over the railing opposite of Vader's legion, with many Alpha class ARC troopers being among them, that Jango himself of course trained during the Clone Wars. And as the battle ensues in the massive area, hundreds of clones spill over the obstacles, meeting in the middle for this battle. However, when Jango looks over his shoulder again, Darth Vader is suddenly gone, making him wonder where the Sith could have gone to. But then, Jango and Boba fly over to the nearby platform, where even though they had to work together to survive right there, Jango still needs his credits and goes to shoot Boba, but Boba is quicker and shoots Jango off the platform into the water below, before barely making his way into the Slave One, still weak from his broken ribs. But then Jango swims and flies out of the water, landing on his own version of the Slave One, which is upside down on the bottom side of the platform, meaning that when he gets in the cockpit, Jango is at first at least sitting upright. Then Jango blasts out of the planet, closely followed by Boba, as the rain particles stream against the cockpit. Once the two ships are fully in space, however, they begin a dogfight, maneuvering about with their excellent piloting skills in full effect as the two circle each other with the blue atmosphere behind them. As Jango flies ahead of Boba and does a corkscrew into the upper atmosphere, Boba Fett follows close behind, firing out with the ship's laser cannons, which mostly miss Jango, who's a skilled pilot, but also do mildly tear up the rear and wings of the ship. Jango responds by stopping completely, which makes Boba's Slave One fly ahead of Jango before he shoots out a homing missile which follows Boba down, but Boba outmaneuvers this bad boy, making it explode by releasing a previous bounty frozen in carbonite from the inside of the ship, which collides with the missile, detonating it. And yeah, Boba is apparently that stone cold that he will literally just release a captive in carbonite into space to blow up a missile behind him, so that's pretty cool, I guess. And then as the two are flying straight up again with Jango beneath Boba, he tries to get his targeting systems to lock onto Boba, but then after a light blinks on the back of Boba's Slave One, another small ship is released from the bay. Imperial by the looks of it, which folds out its wings, revealing an advanced TIE fighter driven by no other than Darth Vader himself. And it turns out Boba was double, maybe even triple crossing Jango by now, and Boba had worked with Darth Vader to make his father think that he was on his side, when in fact the whole time they were just luring out Jango, who they knew to be somewhere in the facility when researching the Kaminoan records. But there's no time to say thank you about this to his son, as Vader's craft comes barreling down from above. Jango could for a short while outmaneuver the advanced TIE, but would soon be blown to pieces by Vader, with Jango dying officially this time. Then Boba and Vader would return to Kamino, where Vader force chokes most of the enemy legions at once before discarding their bodies in the water. But anyway, that's it for this video. You can subscribe if you want to. I upload every Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I also post shorts on Saturday. But yeah, see ya.